It's the 9th of May, 2025, and I have the honor and privilege to do a fireside chat with Lieutenant General Jeth B. Ray. And he said it's like Seth, but Jeth. But this interview is on behalf of the Signal and Cyber Museum and their efforts in the Augusta area. And I was reading your bio, sir. It is amazing. I've never seen someone with 4 decades in the military and then wear the private rank, the warrant officer rank, and then 3-star general. What made you want to come in at the military, and what was your initial incentive to come and serve in the Army?
Yeah, so I usually, and thanks again for the opportunity, really appreciate it. Love my Signal regiment.
Cool, sir.
End to end. So just want to make sure I make that clear to everyone. This has been an incredible journey. I tell you that the journey started when I was a 13-year-old kid. I just came from the Virgin Islands because I was born in St. Thomas, and I came up to see my sister in Virginia. And I met this sergeant major, and I met his son, and then I met him, and I would see him every day. And this was, the late 70s, going into the 80s, and I just wanted to emulate what that sergeant major looked like back then. And so I joined ROTC, and in high school, they only had NJ ROTC, which was Navy ROTC. So I joined Navy ROTC, and I joined it for a couple of reasons. It's funny, but, I didn't have a lot of clothes back then, but I really needed a jacket. And that pea coat that I saw them wearing,
oh, nice.
I really needed that pea coat. And so that was important to me to get that, but it taught me a lot of discipline along the way. And I rose through the ranks in NJROTC, and it propelled me to want to join the service post-graduation, high school graduation.
That's very inspiring, sir. So you've seen lots of uniform changes in the military. Did you enlist or were you drafted, sir?
So I was enlisted. I enlisted in the Army, and the funny way that it happened was this, and I love to tell this story because there's so many opportunities out there. But, because I was a Navy JROTC, I went to the Navy, and I wanted to get in. I was only 17, so Mom had to give me permission. Sister had to sign for me to get in. I went to the Navy, and I said, I need to go now. They said, it's going to take about 3 weeks to 3 months. Went over to the Marine Corps, which was very close to the Navy, and I said, hey, I really need to join the service. Got to have a look for an opportunity to do something. They said the same exact thing, 3 weeks to 3 months. I went to the Army, and they said, we can get you in the next day. I said, sign me up.
Oh, very cool. So starting at those humble beginnings, sir, and in your time as... we'll just walk it, I guess, up. Your time as an enlisted service member, now as a 3-star general, how does that impact your decisions at the combatant command level and 3-star level, thinking back on yourself as a young service member?
Wow, that's an interesting question. And I don't get it often, but when I do, I explain it in 3 ways because I have the opportunity to serve in those 3 different ranks, right? So as an enlisted, what I learned in becoming a non-commissioned officer is I had so much impact on soldiers. I could train them. I helped them in the direction that they go, and it was just a time that I enjoyed because you were so close to the action all the time. When I transitioned to become a warrant officer, I really was a little bit more mature, and I wanted to be technically proficient in my field. I was just talking to the class over at Fort Eisenhower, the SCCC class, and I was explaining to them that during that time of warrant, we didn't have really networks back then because this was in the early 90s. So I came in as a 250 Alpha, which was a ComSec warrant. But then they started to think about, we need networks. So 5 or 6 of us were pooled, came back to Fort Gordon and stood up the networking class. And we really taught ourselves. And so we really got proficient in network stuff. And therefore, the transition to a 250 November, which is a network, folks, and now 255 Novembers is where we land. So technically, as warrant was important, and I really focused in, drilled in on it. But a bunch of mentors saw something different. They said, we really would like to see you come back and cross over to become an officer. But I didn't have a degree at the time. So I went to school at night. I finished up my degree, put in an OCS packet, got selected, and became an officer. And in the officer environment, what I learned was organizationally, I needed to be more impactful. So you got enlisted where I was with the troops, training, coaching, teaching, mentoring. Technically, as a warrant, I was, looking and teaching the environment, technical proficiency. But as an officer, it was more about the organizational level of leadership that I learned throughout my time that allowed me to be where I landed today as a general officer.
And what influenced you, sir, to pick a branch? Like, why signal? Why that path, sir?
Yeah, so when I went to the recruiter, there were a lot of options on the board at the time. But the Army back then, in the signal regiment, it really had nothing to do with the digital environment that we're in today. It was a lot more manual in its processes. That's across the board of things that you could do. So I said, hey, that seems pretty interesting. I want to learn how to climb poles. I'd love to do that. So that's really where it all came in, and I came in as a tactical signaleer, and I learned to do that along the way. And I really enjoyed it when I first started, but as I progressed, had to transition into where we are today.
Was that a cable dog or a 31
Cable
uniform?
dog,
Yes,
31
sir.
uniform.
Yes,
it.
sir.
Cable dog.
And then what was basic training like in 1984?
So 83 at Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Yeah.
It was a lot different than it is today. Even the phases were a little bit different. But enjoyed every moment there. I saw my first integration of male and female in basic training occurred right around that time, October timeframe, when I was at basic training. I saw that integration started to happen there. What was funny, I was talking to someone the other day, was, the Army has transitioned so much differently. For every area where we had training was a mess hall was there. Today, we wouldn't get away with that today. So it's a little different now that, there may be a mess hall for an area, but not the way it was back then. It's like every U-shape where we had our barracks for training, there was a chow hall sitting right there, and that's where you did most of your training, and was in that one area.
Was the chow good?
Chow was excellent.
I thought the chow was
excellent.
was excellent. And then adapting to the military after coming from an island, and then traveling the entire world since you've been in. How did you adapt from there? And what would you tell people about your global travels, and maybe share a funny story about one time you were there?
I tell you that it was my first time, being in the cold, and my first time ever seeing snow was at basic training. And then when I got to Korea, was my first time being anywhere outside of, the United States.
It gets cold
so it was my
in
first
Korea.
duty station was in Korea. I will tell you, there's tons of funny stories I could tell, but one that I normally tell people, when I first came in, I was a retrans operator on top of a mountain in Korea. And so whenever they would deliver kit, it would be lower in the lower part of the mountain, and you would have to go down. So at night, I went down there to pick up some kit. And, Ajima would be delivering food throughout the area where people were. And it was so dark one night that I ran into someone. I dropped the kit that I went to pick up because I didn't know what it was. I had this young 17-year-old kid, and I just dropped everything that I had. I ran up to the top of the mountain to the sergeant and said, I don't know what I just ran into, but I'm not going back down there by myself. So it's just, again, fun times. But that was one of the cool experiences. Again, Korea, my first duty station, enjoyed every moment of it, learned more than I had before, and had some great leaders in the beginning there to take care of me.
Very good. And over your almost 40 years, sir?
41 years.
You've seen many changes in the Army.
Sure.
What are some of the important lessons that you've learned that someone listening to this podcast, they could, gain knowledge from the kind of the scar tissue that you already have from those experiences?
What I'll use this platform for is if there's anyone interested in joining our service, it doesn't matter which one, I'll use this platform to say there are so many opportunities. I'm just one that's living those opportunities, but they're incredible opportunities. How could someone, a C student in high school, come out and be sitting and having a conversation with you as a 3-star general? It's because, one, the opportunities, is because the people and the mentors, and is because the drive that you have when you get into this environment, because the people around you push you to be better every day. And I truly, truly believe that. But over time, so the 80s, what did that look like? It was a different Army. We were just on we just came off the end of the Vietnam War. It was a little tough in the military back then. We still had folks that had scar tissue from that war, and we saw that every single day in the motor pools. Someone would crush a can, and those leaders would drop because they thought it was, an IED or a bomb or something going off. And you just saw this different environment. But as things evolved, you saw the military look in the coming out of the 80s into the 90s. The military had an opportunity to look at itself in the mirror and say, what do we need to change? What does society and our communities doing differently that we can incorporate into our military? And they started to look at that, and having a relationship with our towns and our cities, we begin to incorporate them into our business and day-to-day operations. Till, if you look at today in 2000s, we are fully embedded in our cities and our towns now. And everything that we do is we check and balance everything that we do today to ensure that we are keeping up with the times. I mean, just this center here where we are here today, the integration that we have right now is unbelievable. I just got a little input downstairs from one of the gentlemen that told me just the magnitude of what's taking place right here is just unbelievable.
And a lot of folks on the podcast don't know, but we are at the world-class Georgia Cyber Innovation and Training Center, and it is on 100 Grace Hopper Lane in downtown Augusta. Sir, your uniform, I always tell people that when you see someone in uniform, it tells a story. But yours, Ranger, Pathfinder, Combat Action Badge, you've been in some, I tell people there are good people who have the capacity to be bad men. Right. Or, just tell us a little bit about your go-to-war times, your times in the special operations units, just things that touched your heart during those times, and then maybe on some of the different equipment that you used throughout when you started, maybe TriTac and then MSE, and just a story about your uniform and your branch, I guess, sir.
Interesting. So as a young private in Korea, as I was getting towards the end of my tour, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I did get orders to go to Fort Carson, Colorado, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to Fort Carr. What is that? Everybody's telling me it's cold. But my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Lane, Sergeant First Class Lane, told me, I think I have a better approach for you. And he said, I want you to be coming, airborne. So I decided to go to airborne school. He got me my packet turned in, and I became airborne, and I ended up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And it was my first introduction to special operations community under Fort PSYOPs, which I had no idea what it was, but learned so much while I was there. And Fort PSYOPs, a little bit of, learning what they did along with some CA, the Civil Affairs personnel. I learned, how they go out and interact with all of our different countries out there. And I provided communication support to them. With that organization, took me into a couple different operations, Just Cause. It took me into another operation when we went into Saudi Arabia for the invasion of Iraq's first invasion for the Southwest Asia. And so there I was using, and I it's funny because I said, can you believe in 1990, the way I received a message for the commander was on a UXC-7, which is a drum, a fax machine drum on carbon paper, and the message came across there for us to launch the mission on carbon paper in 1990. And now here we are in 2000, we're receiving it right on our phones, and we're receiving it right on our email. It's such a different environment today. And the digital age has come, right? It's been born. So we moved on from that. I had an opportunity to be part of environments like, our war on terrorism. And so those were different times. And now we're in a large-scale combat operation preparation for large-scale combat operations in the future. So times have changed. And it will continue to evolve. I will tell you that'll continue to happen.
You have a ranger school or
Yeah.
ranger regiment
I was in
story, sir?
Yeah, so special operations, 24 years in special operations. What's really cool about the opportunities that I've had is that when they wanted to stand up this special operations signal battalion called the 112th Signal Battalion, I was in PSYOPs at the time, and I got this notification that they wanted me to come over to this new unit that was standing up. I had no idea what it was. So I reported, and then he was promotable at the time, Major Promotable, soon to be Lieutenant Colonel Bryant, was the commander of this organization that was going to stand up. So it was him, the Sergeant Major, the S3, the guidon bearer, and the one lone soldier was, then Specialist Ray, that stood up the 112th Signal Battalion at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Very cool.
And I got a chance to command as a company commander. I had an opportunity to be the battalion commander of that same organization. So it's been great. Got a chance to be the first one to go from that organization to become a ranger.
Oh, it's
That's
historical.
how I got my Ranger tab. Is there. But the funny thing is that the Ranger Regiment, about 4 years later, started to not get communicators in their formation that would volunteer. So I got PCS'd for the first time in the history of the regiment that communicators or any, because it's a volunteer organization, I got PCS'd into the Ranger Regiment, so 3rd Ranger Battalion. So I showed up as a signaler, Ranger tab, into the Ranger Regiment, and I stayed there for 7 years.
Oh,
and just loved every moment of it. But I can tell you there were operations that me and the team wanted to quit on, but the next day we were like, we love it here, so we continued to operate.
yes, sir.
So special ops has been great.
Very cool. During those times in combat and other times, a lot of the listeners may want to know, how did you stay in contact with your family? And what was it what was it like for them to have someone who was gone for extended periods, and then sometimes you could not contact them in certain environments that you were in, sir?
Yeah, so in special operations, especially, we were not able to contact family back home. It was just one of our modes of operation. We weren't able to do it in those early years. I tell you, the first time in special operations that I had an opportunity to really provide a service where you could contact family at home was not until I actually got into Afghanistan. And the funny thing is how we did it was the commander at the time said, hey, look, I'm going to open up the opportunity for us to call back home. So I had to take a fiber line, and my wife will probably be able to let you know that this lovely lady that I met later on in special operations, I took that fiber line about a couple miles down the road to a conventional signal unit and tied in to their MSC system down there, and that's how I was able to get an opportunity for folks to send an email home or make a phone call home. That was our first time. It was like a light bulb had just came on in the room that we had been sitting in darkness forever, and they just could not believe we had the opportunity to send an email or just make a phone call. It was special operations had changed from that day forward.
And in so many different theaters that you've been in, Panama, you've mentioned Afghanistan, Korea, the differences in the theater, and if someone was choosing those duty spots as a young signaleer, what would you say would be the different highlights of each, I guess?
Yeah. So I have had the opportunity to be part of the Indo-PACOM environments over in the Pacific. I would tell you there are beautiful countries over there, challenging as far as operations on a daily basis,
Right.
but what a great learning environment for anyone. I had a chance to be the J6 of CENTCOM, so I had an opportunity to have that entire area of operation under CENTCOM's control. Another place to learn the heritage of those countries. But it is a violent environment. It is one of the most kinetic environments that we have out there. And you must understand, we do protect our forces there better than I think anywhere else in the world because they have been experiencing this for many, many years now. But still a beautiful country to see, great people to get to know and understand. And in Central South America, I had an opportunity to be part of that. Now, I had an opportunity to travel to all 31 countries that CENTCOM, that Southcom controls. And it's a range from Central and South America into the Caribbean.
Yes, sir.
But what another great environment to learn and understand the culture that's there. And their mission is completely different than all the other areas that I just explained. But again, great opportunities. I go back to, you will never find another environment than our service to have these incredible opportunities to travel, learn about the culture around the world, and then share that with your family, your friends, and everyone else. It's just amazing.
Given your 4 decades in uniform, sir, what are some of the biggest changes or most impactful changes that you've seen while serving our country?
Yeah. Let's talk about some funny ones first.
Okay, here we go.
So back in the 80s, I get to Fort Bragg, North Carolina in the Army uniform, and I can't wait to wear what is called the banana PT suit.
Oh, yeah.
So I get my brand new banana PT suit, and I happened to wash it. And when I washed it, it shrunk. And you're going to keep that sweatsuit for the whole time you're in that organization. So if you ever have a chance to go out and Google the banana suit, just take an opportunity to do that. But that's a funny one I just wanted to throw out there. But over those 4 decades, all the across the Army, the changes again have been absolutely tremendous. Let's talk about just from, my profession. I've been a signaler from the day I joined till today. And I saw transformation. So I started off in Korea. I was a ground pounder with the infantry units there, but putting in all their communications. And it was, in order to connect command posts together, back then, it would be 24 reels of WD1 wire from one end to the other to connect to TA312. And that's how we communicated. I was an SB22 operator until the new system came in place, which was you ring down and until the SB3614, a digital switchboard came on the scene, and I was so excited when it showed up. I still remember my switch number was 22 switch in Korea, and I was a young, E3 at that time working 22 switch. And departing from there and just seeing the evolution of things over time, TriTac, MSC systems coming on board, transforming from multi-subscriber equipment to WinT equipment, and now to integrated tactical network systems, and now we're really in the digital age today. The transformation that has been taking place with AI, machine learning, cloud, 5G, 6G, future G that's coming, I will press upon all of our signalers, all of our leaders that are out there to learn those terminologies. If you don't know them, Google them, but learn them, because inherently they're going to be part of our environment for the future to come.
Very good. It's almost like having a walking history of the Signal Corps, sir, since, that is awesome. What are we're kind of top level, we'll come back again, but what are your priorities for the Army as the CIO 6, I guess? If you could talk a little bit about that, sir.
Yeah, so I frame it in a couple different ways. So I said, the framework that we're working off of today is the Army is transforming, and it has a new initiative. So it's Army Transformation Initiative, where the Secretary and the Chief has charged us with looking inside our formations and taking out things that are not relevant to war fighting. For instance, would be, we have a lot of Humvees today that we don't believe are relevant in the large-scale combat operation. So how do we remove those and divest of them from the formation? So in the signal, how does it translate to us from a signal perspective is that we have to look in our formations, and if things like WinT is not able to be maneuverable on the battlefield, or it becomes vulnerable on the battlefield, how do we divest of that and invest in LEO terminals that will provide a faster connection to our satellite systems? So we're looking at that now. They're lighter, they're easy to employ. So we're looking at that as an option on the way forward right now. What we have done in the Signal Regiment, and my priority, is what is called Army Unified Network 2.0. It is to transform our Signal Regiment to a unified network. Take all of our disparate networks that we have and crunch them down to a small, manageable number that we can see end to end of the network, and then embed into that AI, machine learning, and ways that we can become more data-centric from being network-centric. Cloud-enabled capabilities, robust transport, zero trust as a foundation of that. And then future looking ahead, we're looking at what is called next generation command and control. Our contributions to that is the transport layer of that and the infrastructure layer, meaning the cloud-enabled area. What Next Gen C2 brings to us is the application and the data layer. Taking our disparate 13 command and control systems and automating them into applications where they talk to one another in an ecosystem using machine learning and AI in order for that to give the commander faster decision-making tools.
Good. You mentioned earlier, sir, names like Lane and Bryant. What are some of the people that inspired you as a leader? Who were your best teachers? Just some of the folks that you learned from along the way and helped lift you up, and were your champions, those type of people, sir.
Yeah, I'll tell you my 3 champions in these 3 disparate environments that I was a part of. And I would tell you, just as a young private coming in, I go back to Sergeant Lane. He was my first platoon sergeant, and he truly embraced who I was, what I brought as a young kid, and said, I see a little bit more in you that I want to push you further. And he really taught me. He was just a sound professional. And I could look at him and say, I can emulate that non-commissioned officer. I want to be just like that person. So he would be one that on the onset that got me moving. When I transitioned over to become a warrant officer, I always remember my TAC officer. He was CW3 retired Raglan. And I remembered the day that he stayed on me and he just pressured me to be better. And I didn't understand it. I thought it was just, why me? You always say that.
Something.
Why me? Yeah. But he saw something in me, but didn't tell me until graduation day. He said, he told my mother, he said, I saw something in your son and I just wanted him to push him to make him better. And he did. So in that environment, I saw him and I wanted to emulate the kind of person he was and what he saw in others. As I transitioned to become an officer, how I got there was so important. I was in the Ranger Regiment, and it's the only environment that I believe, I'm not sure it's true, that there was an enlisted, a warrant, and an officer in the same organization.
I believe that's true too.
So I was a sergeant first class, a sergeant, staff sergeant, and sergeant first class in the Ranger Regiment, 3rd Ranger Battalion. I departed to go to warrant officer school, and they needed a ComSec warrant back. They called me up, and I came right back to be their ComSec warrant. And as I was ready to depart as a CW2 to go to Hawaii, General Townsend called me to his office for counseling prior to giving my OER, and he said, I want you to become an officer. So you're not going to leave right now. I said, sir, I don't have a degree. He said, no, I want you to become an officer. So retired General Townsend, most folks know him, is the one that pushed me to become an officer. And so I continued to work on my degree, and I finished it, put my OCS packet in, was selected, and was a distinguished honor grad of my OCS class. Upon graduation, he and General Kearney, retired, came to my graduation with a black beret, handed it to me, and told me come back to the regiment because we need a signal officer. So I was the 2nd lieutenant, not down here at the captain's career course, but at the 3rd Ranger Battalion as their signal officer.
Yeah.
So those 3 people impacted my life and got me in the places that I believe I am today.
Very good. And in a couple days, maybe 2, it's going to be Mother's Day, and you mentioned your mom there. What about either former folks when you were a young person that may have influenced you to come in the military, or your family's thoughts on you being in so long? I mean, sure. You doubled retirement.
Sure.
So most people do 20 and retired, and you said, I'm going to double down.
Double down.
Yes, sir. So how about those folks? Tell us maybe a vignette or something about,
yeah, back again, Sergeant Major retired Williams lives in Virginia Beach. I'm actually going to be going to see him tomorrow down in Virginia Beach. He's 92. He'll be 93 this year. And he was just the initial person that really encouraged me to look at a military as an option.
Was he on the island?
He was actually in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Virginia Beach, yes, sir.
Virginia Beach, Virginia. my brother, Stinnett, was the only one that ever served initially during the Vietnam era, but didn't really stay in the service long enough to have an impact in there. So when I joined, I was the only one that joined. So having a mentor like Mr. Williams, I always mention him when I'm on stage that he's the one that I really emulated and wanted to be part of. Just sergeant majors have something that just no one else in the United States military has. It's just something about them, and I know, I'm looking at one and being interviewed with one, and this is just, you have to understand who they are and what they bring to the table, and he is definitely one. My mom, not living today, but was with me for 30 years in the military. I took care of my mom from 1985 until she passed in 2014. She was with me. And she traveled everywhere with me, saw me grow in the military, took care of me and my family on the way through. And she has been, from the time I was 7, she just showed me the way. I'm one of 8 kids, and I'm the last of the 8 kids. And she just saw something in me as the youngest kid and taught me some really important things about life, financial stuff about life. She taught me about taking care of people. And so I really believe that the foundation she set is what got me to where I am today. And I all of this is to her, is really to her.
Wow. That is an amazing prelude to Mother's Day, and a true testament. How, now that we're on family, sir, how did you meet your wife?
Yeah, so my wife, Carla, is an amazing woman. So I was at a unit at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Most will know. We always call it the Behind the Fence unit. I was there for 10 years. In the first 4 years, I saw this woman that was a psychologist there, but one of my things is that I don't talk to anyone in the same unit that I'm a part of. So I waited until my departure on my 4th year to go be a company commander at the 112th, and I had to do a psych interview to exit the unit. She was not available, so I waited. She was not available, so I waited. In the 3rd round, I got a chance to get in to see her and told her that for the last 4 years, you have been in my eye, and I just want to, ask you on the way out the door if there is an opportunity to take you to dinner. And so 3 days after that, she finally called me because I left her my number and said she was open to this option. So I took her to dinner, but here's the kicker. Remember, she's a psychologist. She's very good. And after dinner, she said 3 things to me. This has been a really good night, but there's 3 things. I don't need anything from you. I don't want anything from you. And there's nothing you can do for me. She was a major. I was a captain. When we did get married, a couple of years later,
sir.
I said, you want me? You can't do without me? And I'm here for you.
There you go. That is an awesome
She is so
story.
awesome. She is so awesome.
We're going to bring that back on Valentine's Day when we hear that. So. What advice do you have for dual military couples, I guess?
Oh, wow. That is, let me tell you, my wife and I was separated for almost 12 years as she was military as well. So 26 years, retired psychologist in special operations. And so we were separated for 12 years, and we had to come up with some clever ways to stay in touch with one another and with family. And it was the early stages of things like Skype. And so we made a rule that every night we would have dinner together over Skype. Oh. I would say to families, you have to come up with clever ways to do things. And I normally talk to my soldiers today and my civilians and contractors, and I tell them, I said, hey, look, work is work, but family is more important. And if you don't have to be at work, just make your way home to your family. This interconnected environment that we're part of right now, you can connect wherever you go. So having dinner with the family and maybe checking a few things before you go to bed, more important than getting home and everyone's asleep already and you're still not building that relationship with your family. You must build your relationship with your family. It's more important than anything else. It's all you have when you leave this military, and you want to leave with it intact.
So today, right down the way, Augusta University had a graduation, and we're having high school graduations across our entire area. You have the opportunity to talk to someone who's on the edge about joining the military or going in the civilian workforce. How would you talk to them in kind of, I guess, sell the military by telling your story, I guess, sir?
Yeah, I'll go back to it's the only environment where there's so many opportunities. And I say that in a way that this is an institution that you can come in as a young private or a young officer, and you're going to get a couple things from the military. One, you're going to get an education, for sure. One, you're going to learn discipline and cohesion, and you're going to build a lot of friendships and relationships along the way. But two, you're going to really understand what it is to serve your country in a way that creates freedom for those that choose not to serve. I talk to young kids, and I tell them every time is that I say to them, I said, this morning when you woke up, did you have lights on? This morning when you woke up, did you have running water, food in a refrigerator? Did you go to a baseball game last night? I said, those freedoms are those that serve in this great institution. And it behooves you to think about being a part of this great institution and building the relationships with those around you. And so I talk to them in a way that, hey, look, it's incredible to be part of service.
And now you're a recruiter for Signal, and you are trying to get people that never jumped out of an airplane to be inspired. What was your first jump like, and what would you say to someone you're a jump master? So that had to be a unique experience, sir.
First question I ask myself is, who would jump out of a perfectly good airplane?
Right,
I'm sure you heard that before. Yeah. Keep your feet and knees together at all times. I have been fortunate. The first jump was scary. Subsequent jumps were scary. And the last jump was scary. And if you don't have that attitude, I believe that you won't be successful on every jump that you have. And I know you've heard this before. But really, it was an incredible opportunity to be part of airborne units for almost 30 years of jumping, and I enjoyed every moment of it. I had my one opportunity that I could have jumped into combat and uphold democracy, which was I could have got a mustard on my wing going into. I was the actual jump master on that jump, so I'd be the first one out the door in the lead aircraft going into Haiti. But we got turned around en route, both us and the 82nd Airborne Division. I was in 3rd Range Battalion at the time. But it's
funny how you think of that as a missed opportunity, and others would go, "Oof."
Absolutely, right?
Good thing you didn't have to do that. Are there words, phrases, or concept that have taken on a deeper meaning as a result of your military service?
It has. And the word, so normally when I end any type of leadership development that I have with anyone, there's one word that I put up there, and I say, trust in folks. Empowerment equals trust. So empower your people, and it equals trust. Without empowerment, you will not gain the trust of those around you. So I put empowerment equals trust on the board. Every time before I leave, please empower your people to do their jobs, and I guarantee you the trust will be built.
That's awesome. Empowerment equals trust. What are some of the most important things you believe that the civilian population should understand about the dedications, the sacrifices, and the complexion of the United States military?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that we could not do our job in the military without the civilian workforce. They're the continuity. And so if you're out there and you're thinking about serving, there are opportunities for you to serve in our Department of Defense across the board. And you are the continuity to be part of this incredible environment. Know that those who serve, they have your back. And we do everything every day to ensure your safety, the safety of this country, and the safety of our nation throughout. So,
yeah. Very inspiring, sir. Why is it important to preserve our history, the Signal and Cyber Museum and the Army Heritage and the Army Museum? Why, when people say we want to keep this history, why is that important?
You know, if you always hear the phrase, history repeats itself. And I believe, it's true that if you understand your history, there's going to come a point that history is going to be required to repeat itself along the way. And so we must preserve our history so that those who come after us have something to look back at so they can understand where they actually came from.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's just like family, right? You preserve your family history so you know where you came from and where you're going. You want your kids and the kids of your kids to learn their family history. Is the same reason why we need to preserve the history of our Signal Regiment along the way. I mean, now when I go out on speaking tours or someone is asking me to speak, and I start off, right now we're in the 250th anniversary of our Army. That's coming up. Our birthday is on June 14th. We're going to have and celebrate it in Washington, D.C. So if you have an opportunity to be there, please be part of that. And part of that history is going to be parts of our Signal Regiment.
Yes, sir.
And so there are going to be pieces and parts of our history displayed out there. And I would ask that everyone come out and have an opportunity to see how we're evolving and transforming our Signal Regiment along the way.
Very cool. It's been an honor and privilege to interview you today, sir. Before we go, any closing comments for the audience?
First of all, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. This is to tell my story, to share a couple things about our incredible institution, because I believe in this institution. I wouldn't have served for it for 4 decades. This is not about money or resources or anything. This is about giving back to this incredible institution. That's all it is. And I love what I do. I love being a part of this family. And I say that with meaningful, that this is a family. And if you have never been part of an institution where someone has your back and they want to take care of you you can come and meet people 10, 15 years later, and it seems like you just departed yesterday.
Brother and sister.
Being part of this brotherhood and sisterhood, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And that's why I like to be part of this every day. And I ask those who are on the fence to find a mentor, find somebody who I will always keep myself available as well. If you would like to just talk about being part of this great institution, and I'd love to have that conversation. But really enjoyed this talk. I really appreciate you, Dr. Clark, for allowing me to be interviewed by you. Thank you so much.
We're going to close out here at the world-class Georgia Cyber Innovation and Training Center, where we have just interviewed Lieutenant General Jeth B. 40 years in the military, defending freedom in the American way of life. Thank Thank you very much.